Now, Americans are generally living longer. Well, scratch that. Rich Americans are living longer. Everyone else seems to be screwed. Bloomberg is reporting on a new study that showed how wealthy Americans are now reaping the benefits of wealth concentration by living longer and drawing more money from taxpayers, while lesser affluent Americans are experiencing a drop in life expectancy. So, look, this is a disaster. This is a disastrous study. And, of course, there are some lessons that we can draw from this. But first, let me tell you more about this. Now, based on the latest year of data, the Society of Actuaries last fall had dropped its life expectancy estimates for 65-year-olds in the U.S. by a total of 6 months. The health of middle-aged non-Hispanic white Americans happens to be deteriorating the fastest out of all different groups. Now, wait a minute. Middle-aged non-Hispanic white American. Oh my God, that's me. I'm a non-Hispanic white American who's middle-aged. Holy shit, why didn't I notice? What's going on? I'm gonna die. But seriously. Now, the results of these trends, according to this new study, is the widening gap between wealthy and poor Americans. You've got classic income inequality. Now, look, you have a massive transfer of wealth to the top. Obviously, you're going to have less and less regular people being able to afford seeing a doctor, while, of course, those at the top get the best medical care in the world. And look, the United States does have the best medical system in the world. Medical care, I should say, if you can afford it. So if you can afford it. Now, it gets... Now, if you can't afford that, you're screwed here in America. Now, it gets worse, right? Now, the richest people in the United States aren't just getting an extra several years of life on their life expectancy because, again, they can access better health care and take advantage of the newest technologies and treatments, etc. They're also reaping a financial reward for their longevity courtesy of the U.S. taxpayer. Now, I will get to that in a minute. But first, let me tell you more about the study. Now, the researchers, a group of 13 prominent economists and health policy experts, basically tried to figure out how long Americans can expect to live based on their income. Okay, well, that seems fairly standard. Now, they focused on earnings in mid-career from the years of 41 to 51 in using Social Security data. Now, the results in this, they say, are stark. In 1980, a 50-year-old man in the wealthiest fifth of income distribution could expect to live 5 years longer than a 50-year-old man in the lowest income group. By 2010, the gap between them had jumped to almost 13 years. 12.7 years. We're going to round it up to 13. So it went from 5 years, it doubled. It more than doubled. 5 years to 13 years. Wow. And that is, again, that is in a 30-year time frame. Sad. Disaster. In other words, the poorest fifth of 50-year-old American men can now expect to live just past the age of 76. That is 6 months shy of the previous generation. The richest 50-year-olds will make it almost to 50 or to 89. 7 years longer than their parents' generation. So wealthier people, they're living longer than they had previously before. Not wealthy people, they've actually lost ground. 6 months, yes, but they're still losing ground. As technology and healthcare get better, they lose ground because they can't access this because of the large income inequality, the wealth gap that we have, where they don't have the wealth and the rich do. Well, that's a big problem. Now, for the rich, hey, great. Rich people living longer, I'm okay with that. I want more people to live longer. I just want the benefit to be equally distributed. I want everybody to live longer. Now, again, disaster, right? So income inequality is essentially killing people faster. Now, one thing that you might have noticed, that this was just a study on men. Now, why is that? Is it a sexist study? Not necessarily. Now, the study focuses on men because the researchers considered the data on women less reliable. Not because women are less reliable, not because of any sort of sexist reasons, but they say women's move into the workforce of the past 40 years is what could skew the numbers. For example, because earlier generations of women sometimes had lower reported earnings while having a relatively high socioeconomic status. So again, that's the methodology. It skews the numbers, so that's why they focused on men in this study. Now, while the researchers weren't prepared to produce specific estimates for women, they were confident that women experienced a similar, if not larger, change over time compared to men, citing previous analysis. So they're saying that, yeah, so we didn't study women because the data was incomplete, the data was a bit skewed, but we can assume, looking at this, looking at what's been happening with women and men, we can assume that you'll at least have the same change among women, or possibly even larger of a change. Meaning more affluent women living longer, less affluent women living, not having as high of a life expectancy as, again, their affluent counterparts. Oh boy. So now, how does that play into the financial reward that I asked, that I mentioned earlier from the taxpayer? I mean, again, living longer is an obvious benefit. I would love to live a very, very long, healthy life, and possibly become immortal. That would be sweet. But hey, look, these people, they're also getting more money. Well, how does that work? How are the more affluent getting more money from living longer? Well, it has to do with Social Security and Medicare. It happened. Those programs, which are awesome, and I love them, they're also helping affluent Americans because of the way that they're set up. Bloomberg explains, 3 decades ago, the richest and poorest retirees could expect about the same amount of benefits out of government programs. The richest generally got larger Social Security payouts, both by qualifying for higher checks and living longer. The poorest got more out of other programs, such as Medicaid and Social Security Disability. Medicare offered about the same benefits to rich and poor. So that's what happened before. Now the math is a little different. Okay, wealthier people tend to live longer and therefore can expect to collect more from Social Security over their lifetimes than people who are poor. Not only that, but we've also seen Republicans and conservatives, Donald Trump, not necessarily Trump, sorry. I don't want to incorrectly attribute this to him, because again, on the campaign trail, he promised specifically not to cut Medicaid, but Mick Mulvaney wants to cut Medicaid, he wants to cut Medicare, he wants to call all those things, and Republicans have no problem wanting to go after these social programs, these great society programs. Now, of course, when they cut those, obviously poor people are the ones to suffer the most. And as you saw, they benefited more from this, and it kind of made up for the fact that rich people made more from Social Security. They got higher Social Security checks when they retired. So, now, I also have to note, and this is very important to the solvency of Social Security, which, by the way, is solvent. It's not going broke. In fact, is running a surplus right now. But it does, in the future, as a result of this, might not be able to pay out as much money like 30 years from now. Okay, so now I have to note that when you make over a certain amount of income per year, you don't have to pay into the Social Security tax. So if you're an affluent person, within the first 1 to 2 months, you've paid all the taxes that you need to do with Social Security. Done. You don't have to pay anymore. Well, that's an inefficient system. If we lift that cap, however, then all the problems with Social Security, and again, it's not scheduled to run out of money. At worst, it would pay 80% of benefits out. If you lift that cap, well, then you could pay it in perpetuity. You can pay it forever. Okay? Now, that's even if wealthier people continue to draw even more benefits from living longer. So, there's that. Now, how much more are wealthy people getting from Social Security currently? Well, I'm sorry. In 1980, a wealthier 50-year-old could expect to collect $103,000 more than a poor American. 30 years later, that gap was $173,000. These results suggest that Social Security is becoming significantly less progressive over time due to the widening gap in life expectancy, according to the researchers. Now, The retirement system looks more even-handed if you include the analysis of all government benefits received and all taxes paid by Americans after age 50. Still, longer lives are giving the rich and upper middle class a big financial boost, especially through Medicare and Social Security, even as the poorest Americans lose ground. Now, look, the way that that's written might suggest that, well, maybe we should curtail Social Security benefits. No, that's not the right way to go. Some are going to try to spin this as, hey, we should cut Social Security and Medicare. Rich people, they're getting too much from it. But actually, it would be a cut to poor people who would be impacted the most. No. See, the problem here, what got us into this entire mess is widening income inequality. Neoliberalism. The fact that affordable health insurance, even under the ACA, is still out of reach for so many Americans. That's what got us in this mess. Outsourcing, stagnant wages, the elimination of health benefits for many jobs, increased stress from increased debt. And let's not forget about the heroin epidemic that happens to be killing some members of the working class. So, now the cure for this is progressive policy. Higher minimum wage, more opportunity for good paying jobs, healthcare that's actually covers everybody, universal healthcare that is single payer, Medicare for all. Those are the kinds of policies that are going to close this income gap and actually bring, because again, I want everybody to live longer. I want wealthy people to live longer. I want poor people to live longer. I want everybody to have a decent standard of living at the very least. So it's not like, oh, I want rich people to die sooner. No, that's not at all. I just want poor people to get the same chance. Okay? And look, if you do some of these changes, not only will higher wages close that income gap and actually put it to more a sustainable level, because again, there's always going to be some sort of income inequality. There's never going to be complete income equality, but you can reduce that to a level to where CEOs are not making 300 times more than their employees, where they're making 10 times, 30 times. That still sounds like a lot, but compared to 300 times, not so bad. Medicare for all, of course, will allow people who are not rich to be able to see a doctor without worrying about, deductibles and insurance premiums, and actually get that preventative care, which helps you live longer. Turns out, you see a doctor, you might actually live longer. Who knew? Well, apparently, Republicans don't know. And some neoliberal corporate Democrats also don't know. And look, when you can actually go and see your doctor and get preventative care, you also learn habits maybe that might help you make better health decisions that will help you live longer. Look, in the wealthiest and most productive country in the world, we cannot continue to have all the wealth and all the benefits continue to flow to a small number of people. Instead of cutting programs like this, we need to expand programs. And we can do that by asking the rich, who are now getting more benefits from these social programs. Yes, you know who's the welfare queens? They're the welfare queens. Asking them to pay their fair share in taxes so that they can help lift everyone up and ensure that all Americans will be able to benefit from our country's increasing prosperity. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.